Hey there, I'm Dayna Johnson, dental practice management expert, certified Dentrix trainer, and founder of Navoni, revolutionizing the dental industry through innovation and strategic leadership. It wasn't long ago that I lived in your shoes, navigating the daily challenges of managing a dental practice with the hopes and dreams of having a productive schedule, money in the bank, and getting home on time to my sweet daughter. After 25 years working in the dental practice and 17 years as a certified Dentrix trainer, I found my life's work, helping dental teams one-on-one, optimizing their systems and software. If you are looking to create the thriving dental practice you have always dreamed of and empower your high-performing dental team, you are in the right place. Let's get started.
Okay, so last week we talked about the difference between the fee schedule method and the allowed amount method when you are in network with an insurance plan and you are trying to give the patient accurate estimates for treatment plans, or you're trying to collect better on the day of service. So last week I discussed the difference between fee schedule method and allowed amount method. Now, have you decided which method you are using? Okay. Have you decided that? Because you have to decide, you have to pick one. You can't merge the two together. It doesn't work that way. And so as long as you've decided which method you're using, if you're still confused, go back to last week and re-listen to the podcast. If you're still confused, reach out to me. We'll schedule some training, okay? And so today what I wanted to dive into is a little bit more with some of the exceptions, because, estimating, when I was in a practice, 15, 20 years ago, estimating insurance was easy. I mean, insurance companies had a $1,500 maximum. They paid on 180/50 coverage percentage. Things, we didn't have exceptions for downgrades on crowns, or, these exceptions on, you can't bill a buildup on the same day as a crown, and we can't do this until the patient turns this age, and we can only do this procedure every 2 years. But there's just so many exceptions that it drives us flipping crazy. I mean, I feel like I'm losing my mind sometimes when I work with offices. I don't actually work in a practice anymore. I just work with all of you. So, I'm working with practices and helping to teach you how to implement this insurance estimating better in your Dentrix software. And I'm going to lose my mind half the time because there's just so many rules and frequencies and downgrades. And I'm like, oh my gosh, just shoot me, Well, I want to try and at least give you some tips on creating an environment where, it's never going to be perfect. We're not going to be able to accommodate every single exception, but I do want to give you some tips on some of the most common. And so I'm going to separate this conversation again between the fee schedule method and the allowed amount method, because there are slight differences between the two when you are estimating. So because Dentrix gives you a choice between fee schedules and allowed amount, then there is differences in the way you estimate. Okay, so let's talk about fee schedule method first. If you are using the fee schedule method, which means you are linking the fee schedule to the plan and you are posting in-network contracted fees to the treatment plan, and you want to estimate for posterior composite downgrades, then what you will want to do is you will want to put in the calculation for the downgrade in the payment table. Now, typically when you use fee schedules, you are not using the payment table at all, okay? But with posterior composite downgrades, because the patient is responsible for the difference between the composite and the amalgam, we're going to put the calculation in the payment table. Now there's a paid column and there's an allowed column. When you're using the fee schedule method, you will never use the allowed column, okay? But you can use the paid column for posterior composite downgrades. So you'll calculate how much is this insurance plan going to cover for a posterior composite based on the amalgam fee. Once you have that calculation, you'll put the posterior composite code and then the paid amount in the paid column. And then it will accurately estimate for the patient the downgrade. The other thing you can use the paid column for when you're using the fee schedule method is you can use it for procedure codes that are not covered. For example, if this plan doesn't cover grafting, you could put the grafting code in there with a 0. If this plan doesn't cover night guards, you could put the night guard code with a 0, and then it will override the coverage table. So that's one way that you can allow for some of these exceptions. Now, what you'll also notice is that there is an exceptions table in your insurance setup. In the coverage and benefits in the insurance setup, there is a exceptions table. Now, it's great for looking at. It's really pretty. It has lots of details in it, but it doesn't do anything with estimating. So it's great for informational purposes only. Now, with the allowed amount method, if you want to calculate posterior composite downgrades accurately, it's going to take a little bit of math on your part first, just like fee schedule method. It's going to take a little bit of math, but here's the difference. Because you're posting full fee to the treatment plan, and now you're using the allowed amount column. So if you go to the payment table and allowed amount in the benefits and coverage, there's the paid column and there's the allowed amount column. When you're using the allowed amount method, remember I said last week, you're copying that fee schedule into the allowed column, so it'll estimate based on your in-network fee. Now, when you're trying to estimate for posterior composite downgrades, here's the trick, okay? You will use the paid column instead, and you will calculate the downgrade based on the amalgam fee, of course, just like you did before. The only difference is in the paid column, you also have to include what your adjustment will be. Okay? All right. I know that's a little confusing. So let's say, for example, that your full fee for a composite filling is $200, and your full fee for a amalgam, well, let's say your full fee for a composite is $200, but your in-network fee for the composite is $100. So you would have a $100 write-off, a PPO adjustment for that composite, okay? So you have to allow for that adjustment in your calculation. So, for example, first you have to calculate, okay, what would the insurance company pay towards the amalgam? So let's say they're going to pay $50 towards a posterior composite. Okay. Now in the paid column, you can't just put $50 in there like you did with the fee schedule method. You have to put $150 in the paid column because you have to allow for the adjustment and how much they're going to cover for that downgrade. I know that sounds confusing and you might need to see it. Okay. This is a podcast. Okay. I'm just talking. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you're just watching me talk. You don't get the opportunity of me like showing you on the computer screen.
Did you know that you could increase your team's productivity by up to 200% if you had a formal team training program in place? And businesses that do have a formal team training program in place also enjoy up to a 24% increase in profit margin. If you want to learn how and book a call with me, click on the show notes and book a free discovery call with me, and we will talk all about it.
So I would love to help you with all of this. So if you need help visually, then we can either schedule some training, or you can jump into my membership and I have a full insurance course that you could take. Okay, so that's the biggest downgrade issue that we are dealing with in the insurance industry is posterior composite downgrades. So you can put the calculations in your Dentrix software, whether you're using the fee schedule method or the allowed amount method. Now, some of these other freaky exceptions and downgrades that we have, like insurance companies are downgrading crowns from a porcelain crown to a PFM, or they're downgrading a posterior crown to anterior. I mean, it's just like mind blowing, some of the freaky shit that they're doing. It makes it complicated for you. And I get that. Now, when it's a downgrade on a crown, we don't have any way of calculating that in Dentrix because we don't have a different code. You know, for fillings, we have different procedure codes for amalgam and composite. We also have different codes between a 1 surface, a 2 surface, a 3 surface, and a 4 surface. We also have a different code between a posterior and an anterior. Okay, so we can make the calculations when they do a downgrade because we have codes to accommodate it. Now, when an insurance company is going to downgrade a crown, we don't have the option of calculating that because we're going to bill what we do. We're going to bill a posterior porcelain crown. We're going to bill a 2740, but the insurance company is going to downgrade it to something else, like a 2750 or something. Well, we can't accommodate the calculation in that because there isn't a way that we can do that in Dentrix. So what you can do, and I was talking to an office about this yesterday, is if you are 100% sure, if you know 100% sure that this crown for this patient is going to be downgraded, then you can override the estimate, and you can do that from the treatment plan. So if you are looking at your treatment plan and you have a procedure code in the treatment plan case, you can double click on that procedure code. And this is where, of course, it shows you the fee, it shows you the tooth number. There's a note box right there. Okay. So as long as we're in the right spot, then over on the right-hand side, you'll see this override primary insurance estimate. Okay. You can override the estimate there if you want to. I used to use that override for a few things when I was in a practice. I would get really creative. And if I was giving the patient a treatment plan estimate that spanned over 2 benefit years, and because if I give the patient this full treatment plan estimate, of course, it's going to max out. And then, half the treatment plan, it's going to show that the insurance isn't covering anything. The patient is going to max out. Well, I would get creative and I would override the insurance estimate. So I would be able to give my patient a full treatment plan estimate that spanned over 2 benefit years because I could override the estimate coming from the coverage table. So that's one trick that you could use. Just be really careful and cautious about that, just because if you put the override in there, then it's not going to go away. So, if the patient doesn't do that procedure for a year or so, that override is going to stay there. So, it may mess up your estimate if you don't remember that it's there and take it out. So just a little trick there. I also wanted to just share with you what I'm seeing with the Dentrix Insurance Eligibility Pro. I was working with an office yesterday, and what I was watching happen was when we sync the insurance eligibility and benefits from the Eligibility Pro, it's actually syncing into the coverage table individual procedure codes and their individual coverage percentages. Because another thing that we're seeing, of course, is that sometimes perio maintenance is covered at 100%, but it's in the perio category. So if your perio category is set at 80% in your coverage table, but your perio maintenance is covered at 100%, then it's going to still calculate at 80. So what I really have liked seeing with the Eligibility Pro is when you sync the benefits into Dentrix, it is actually breaking out code by code and what's the percentage of coverage for that procedure code, which is fantastic because if you were going to try and do that manually, it's very time consuming. I mean, you can manually separate out your coverage categories. Right now, the categories usually go from 0-100 to 0-1-999, and then there's a percentage. Well, if you want to break out your coverage table, you can do that manually. It's just very time consuming. What I love about Eligibility Pro is it actually does it all for you. It's just like magic, which is really cool. The other thing I've really liked about Eligibility Pro is it syncs in the exceptions. So now you can see directly sealant coverage, is it covered up to age 14 or sealant's covered up to age 18? How often is SRP covered? Is there a rule for replacement of crowns? How often can a patient have SRP? Things like that. So the exceptions are being synced into the benefits and coverage as well, which is awesome. So I hope these are a few good tips for you with trying to get better estimates with those crazy downgrades and the difference between fee schedule method and allowed amount method. I know I've thrown out a lot of information for you over these last 2 podcasts because insurance is so complicated. My goal for you is to help you try and make your estimates as accurate as possible. Still not, I don't advocate for you babysitting and being accountable for patients' insurance. This is us just trying to be, helpful for our patients and try and estimate as much as possible so that we can collect better. But patients really still should be as involved as possible with their own plan. So I still would like for you to, if you're getting insurance eligibility from any kind of third-party software, print a copy of it for your patient and hand it to them and say, hey, this is the information I get from your insurance company, and this is what we use for giving you an estimate. Now, of course, it doesn't have all the rules on it. So sometimes things might come back as denied or things might be downgraded that we just don't know about. So I like giving patients a copy of what we receive. So then, the patient is just as informed as we are. And then we're all playing from the same playing field. We're all working from the same information. All right, my friends, I hope this has been helpful. If you found that these last couple episodes on insurance have been helpful for you, they might be helpful for your colleagues. If you're in an office manager study group with ADOM, or maybe you have a study group that you do that you collaborate with, share this podcast with them. Give us a rating. If we love 5-star Google reviews just as much as you do. So please rate our podcast. That's how we are able to share our information with more people. And I look forward to watching your journey of becoming a high-performing dental team.